Okay. Okay, everyone, thank you for coming. Woo! Party on, Wayne. Just want to speak a little bit about the sefer and about Navi, about Tanakh. What's the point of the sefer, why we're here, and just share a little bit about myself as well. They start with a joke, a really bad joke. Why didn't they learn? I actually told this to Rav Breitowitz, who gave me a skama on the sefer. He started giggling. He's like, now. He's very soft. They said, why didn't they learn Navi in yeshivas? Because they opened up a book and said J-O-B, so they shut it and ran away. No? All right. At least one person thought it was funny. So right. So just to share a word or two over here is basically we're coming together to celebrate. It's not just the writing of the sefer, of course, but it's to come to celebrate what Navi is actually about and what it actually means to be a Navi. So just to start over here, I never ever did well in school. I failed everything that I did from first grade to kindergarten through high school. I basically failed my way through school. And in fact, when I found an old report card, it's probably my parents' house someplace in Staten Island, and my Navi teacher gave me a 32, right? I should send them a copy of the book if they're even still alive, if they're even still alive, No, I don't know. I only wish good things upon them, They, and that was before they gave letter grades, like an F would have been better, right? Just give me an F, like a 32, what's up with that, It's terrible. So it was pretty devastating, as, you get a bad grade as a child, and although I wasn't consciousness of the time, because that was just my way straight through, was to get bad grades and just fail my way through everything that I did, so it feels so great to me to be able to write this book, and it feels very healing that Hashem had granted me the opportunity. It's very humbling. It's almost sold out, 1,000 copies. We're raising now for a second printing, We want to do Hebrew pocket-sized for soldiers to connect them to the land, because a lot of them don't know anything. And really, I think that's what Navi's really about, second chances, right? You could sum up the whole Navi, and we're on the land, we're off the land, we're on the land, we're off the land, and now we're back on the land, So this is an incredible thing that we have, the great Navi Yoshua. We had Yoshua. He was, Moshe died. Most people don't know what happened to Navi, right? The Torah leaves us on a cliffhanger. It's like Moshe died. Now what happened? It's like binge watching Netflix. You got to go to the next episode. So the Torah ends on a cliffhanger. Moshe dies. Most people don't know what happened next. They know a little bit about Yoshua. Yoshua's whole thing was to conquer the land, to take it back, to be mahapech, the klipas to the tzara kedusha, to rid it of the Zion Amim, of the 7 nations that were there, and then to bring it to the side of holiness, which is why he married Rachav. And then what happens next? Yoshua, he was a great man, obviously. I can't speak anything bad about him, but Chazal say he really delayed because he knew that his job was to conquer the land, and the second he finishes, he's going to die. So he actually didn't conquer the full land. And then, close scene, Act 2, Sefer Shoftim. Sefer Shoftim, what happens is that all of the, we're there, we're in the land, we're trying to figure out what exactly we're doing. It's very much like modern day. And there's constant skirmishes, there's constant wars between the nations that are there. And so the Jews are doing good. There's 2 years of war here. There's an Iran war there. There's a little bit in Gaza here. There's a little thing in Turkey and the West Bank over there. Okay, it settles it. And then, one government comes, takes it down, makes a little bit quiet. And then what happens is next, then they act up again. And there's constant skirmishes that are happening until the shofet comes. Then ultimately we end with Pelegish Begiva, which is one of the tragic stories in Nach, because the shoftim go from good, bad to worse. At least in the order that it's written, they go from good, bad to worse. And then you have Pelegish Begiva. And then what happens when there's Ein Melech Ba'aretz and every man does what's right in their own heart, right? There's no centralized authority, right? So what do you need next? You need a Malucha. You need a king. Open. Act 3, right? Act 2. Curtain closes, open up. Here we are in Sefer Shmuel. We need a Navi. We need a Melech. We need a centralized authority in order to not only have these little skirmishes, but to really rule with power, to really rule with strength, to really go after the Iranians, to get some plans going, some intel, some good old-fashioned bombs, drop them on our enemies, right? So then you have a Malucha, you have the centralized authority. You have Shaul starts first, then you have David, but you have a centralized authority. You have Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. You have the heyday, you have the Beis HaMikdash. It's very, very short-lived, very, very tragic. About 50 years, Shlomo in his heyday. Then you already have the split in the kings, the split in the Malucha, Yeravam, Rechavam, right? Achia Shulani takes off the garments, ripped it up, says the Malucha is going to be stripped from you, right? And then all of a sudden you have Sefer Malachim, you have the Pizar Achar Pizar, descent after descent. You have the split in the Malucha. Okay, this government's good for a few years, and that kid's bad. That government's better than the last guy. Okay, Trump's a little bit better than Biden, but who's going to be after him? But before that was Obama. Biden was a little bit better than Obama, right? There's a little bit of this whole back and forth over here. One king's better than the next, another one's a little bit worse. Until finally there's the split in the Malucha, and ultimately, as we're entering the 3 weeks, there's the descent after descent, and then you have until we're actually thrown off our land. What happens? We're thrown off our land, right? The big tragedy. You have Neviim warning about it. You had Yeshaya Hanavi, could you imagine? I mean, I love Yeshaya, happens to be my name, but I love Yeshaya, the prophecy of Geula, and then you have Yirmiyah, who's mamish, there's the guy, Homebound. Everyone knows the website, the YouTube channel Homebound. Everyone's watching this guy, Michal, whatever, I forget his last name. He's a friend of mine. I'm actually doing a podcast with him next week, I think, What's the last name? Weichbrod, right? He reminds me of Yirmiyah Navi, he's got that fire in his eyes, doomsday prophet, words of truth, putting himself on the line in a place where no one wants to, And then you have Yechezkel, Mamish, the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed, and all of a sudden you can't have Nevuah and Chutz La'aretz, and you have the great Yechezkel, because he started in Eretz Yisrael, so he's mamshech of Kedusha, the Chutz La'aretz, and he's mamish, could you imagine? You think God left you, your home is destroyed, Hashem doesn't have a home, you think Lo Bachar Bo B'David, he doesn't want Am Yisrael anymore, and then you have Yechezkel, getting chizuk left, right, and sideways, and you have all the Treyasar, you have prophets, you have Hosea, you have all these things, so it's amazing how many second chances Hashem gives us in life. And the truth is that all the Neviim, they're not really history lessons. There's one way to learn it, which is the history, which is fantastic. I mean, it's amazing. They're fantastic stories in their own right. But we have only the Neviim that we needed for future years, the ones to encourage us. And really, if you look in the Neviim, it's a template. It's alive. I can't wait to meet the day that I can meet Yirmiyah Hanavi and see on the streets, that's Yeshaya. And meet Yehoshua, and meet David HaMelech, what's that going to be like? We're going to meet Amos. If you never learn Amos, it's only a few prakim long. You could finish it in 4 minutes in the Nach Daily sefer. Bullet point summaries you go through. You could meet Amos for the first time. You could meet Hosea, who is a Gilgal of Yehoshua, which is why Hosea married a Zona called Gomer Bas Devela. Most people don't even know that. It's part of our Torah. It's part of it. It's where we are. And Rav Kook explains that there's 2 types of light. I mean, there's many types of light, but in this one place he explains in Or HaKodesh, Rav Kook says that there is the light of Torah. There's the Or of Torah, the Nevuah of Moshe Rabbeinu, which was the Nevuah. It's unrelenting light. The Torah is always true. It comes from above. It goes down below. And the Torah is true. You could hold anything up to the yardstick. The measuring stick of everything is the Torah itself. But then what happens is we have the Neviim. So Rav Kook says that the Neviim is the light that comes from below to above. It's the light that the way the Navi experienced Nevuah is that it got refracted through his own being, through his own self, and in a certain way it was the Navi giving back to Hashem. Even though he was channeling this light of Hashem, it was a completely inside-out experience of Nevuah where he saw that there was only one hand behind life, both the good and the wrong all came from Hashem, and it was the light that we give back to Hashem. And nowadays, Rav Kook explains that even though we have these 2 lights, the light of the Torah and the light of the Navi, And the light of the Torah is on record, low-key stronger, as they say. You know, low-key stronger, right? It's low-key stronger. On the record, the light of the Torah is stronger. But sometimes it happens in the world where the light of Nevuah goes higher than the light of the Torah. And I believe that nowadays we're living in that time period that Rav Kook, who was a Navi in his own right, Rav Kook said that the light of Navi, now is the time. Now is the time of the revelation of Nevuah. One is because if you want to understand anything that's going on nowadays, just open up the Navi. The Torah's been studied from here till tomorrow. You could fill up a library as big as the backyard, full of Meforshim ala Torah. But Navi, most people don't know it, right? Now is the time to start learning Navi, to answer the complexities of life. It's not just enough to be here in Eretz Yisrael, but what are we doing here? What's our purpose here? What have we come here to do? Right? And when you, is our government bad? Is it good? What's with the army? Why do they do this? Why do that? It's all in the Navi. Everything is there in the Navi. And the light of the Navi, the light that comes from within and goes back above, the light that comes from within the deepest recesses of our soul, the light that shows us that there's only one hand behind creation, behind all world history. As Rav Kook says, it's the Zroh Netuya is the long hand of Hashem guiding history, not only on a macro level, but also the history of our own lives, is the light that gives us a second chance. It's the light that we all need to tap into nowadays, because what's the next step here, guys? There's only one next step. You know what that is? Mashiach. Nevuah. It's prophecy. It's us getting to the level of Ruach HaKodesh. We have tzaddikim that have Ruach HaKodesh, and everyone on their own level has Ruach HaKodesh. And what's the next step? Nevuah, prophecy. And the experience of prophecy was a deep experience of healing. It was an experience of seeing that Hashem loves you no matter what you've been through in your life, no matter what you've gone through, no matter where you've been, no matter what you're facing, no matter what you're up against, no matter what problems. There's always a second chance. And if anyone had any questions about second chances, here we are. Here we are in Eretz Yisrael, in Beit Shemesh. You know what happened in Beit Shemesh? I'm sure so many people know the Aron was returned through Beit Shemesh. Here in our backyard, we have Emek Ha'ela, we have Park Yarmut, which is where, not this actually Park Yarmut, but the one that is Lezecher, is where they fought, Yoshua fought the kings. Can you imagine Yoshua? He's fighting the enemy, and he's like, Hashem, I got this. Time stands still. Makes the sun stand still. It's better than any trick that the White Wizard could do, or Dumbledore could do in Harry Potter or in Lord of the Rings. Boom! Time, stop, right? Is that amazing? And here we are, stuck in this perpetual, eternal moment. In the times of the Geula, all of us have Geula Neshamas. All of us are living in this time, and Hashem wanted us to be born in this time, the time of the revelation of the Navi, the time of the revelation of the prophet, the time where all of us have this experience, and it's not just enough just to keep the laws, which we all want to do, but we're all thinking, what do I add? What do I give back? How can I make this meaningful? How can I have this experience and transform it into one that it's not just I'm following the laws by rote, I'm following the halachas. That's all good. We need to do that. But we need to combine the halachas with the prophetic experience. We need to combine it. We need to bring it together, the halacha and the nevuah, back together by learning Navi, by being here and understanding that everyone who comes here adds to the land. Rabbi Gerzi was saying beforehand, everyone has something to add. Just by being here, we're all part of the Nishmas Yisrael, and that there's no such thing as giving up, right? And if any religion comes along and says they're right, we say, hey buddy, it's 2,000 years, we're back in our land, and that's an amazing, amazing thing. I don't know what in the world you're talking about. Here we are in Beit Shemesh, having a good time, drinking beers, eating chalent, getting to know one another. What could be better than that? What could be more geuladik than that? And we just need to keep our clothing clean, our clothing fresh, even though we're worn out. The Tzamas Yeveshus, as Yechezkel says, chapter 37, right? Yirmiyahu says, chapter 34. He says, one day, you know what's going to be one day? They're going to plant vineyards. Baruch Hashem, we have some good wine here in Eretz Yisrael, and we could see the land growing. It's not, the Navi is not just a historical book of stories. It's good, it's got a lot of great stories, but it's mamish alive, and we're all living Neviim. We're all living the words of the Navi nowadays. So it's an amazing thing, and I just want to tell everyone that it's a big chizuk, everyone coming here, I'm feeling everyone's love, The sefer, again, the sefer's almost sold out 1,000 copies. I never thought that'd happen in a million years, but it's a time of second chances. It's the time of the geula. It's the time of unexpected things. We could have ballistic missiles and mamish, come on, nothing happens. I mean, nisim giluyim, that when we push teva to its limits, then it meets with nisi, it meets with the miracle, and here we are. It's mamish, a miracle in front of our eyes to see something grows here, some people have heard me say this before, but the Ottoman Empire, when they ruled Eretz Yisrael, they did a survey. How many people could the land itself sustain? And you know what they came up with? They came up with the land from a geological perspective could sustain 600,000 people. That's it. I think we're like 9 million people here, 6.5 million Jews alone, because it's a live land. It's a land that gives forth with bracha. It's a land of the Navi. It's the land that gives forth back to Hashem. And it's such an amazing thing to be here. It's such an amazing schus to be here. It's a much amazing thing to be living in the time period that we're in. We daven every day. We hope and see that we'll see Mamish Shmuel Hanavi walking. We want to see a Shaya. That day's going to happen. It's mamish right around the corner, We're going to see Yirmiyah. We're going to see Yechezkel, Micha, Amos, Ido, Achiel, Shulami. We're going to see all the Neviim walking in their flesh. We're going to see Moshe Rabbeinu. And what are we going to do? We're going to give them a hug. We're going to give them a hug. We're going to say, I love you. Thank you. I feel like I know you. Thank you for telling me that one day my life is going to be good. One day all sickness will end forever. One day the lamb will walk with the fox, two opposites that normally kill each other, but there's going to be world peace. Yeshaya Navi says, La'isa Goyal Gai Cherev, the famous Miami Board Choir song, later made into a pasuk, and he says, and I was just thinking, like, we're sitting here in our bomb shelters, and we're just like, La'isa Goyal Gai Cherev, Eloy Meduel Milchama. Sinai, that's your next song. If you don't have a song, La'isa Goyal Gai Cherev, Eloy Meduel Milchama, you're going to write a song about this. I'm going to say the art of war will no longer be studied. And it's going to be peace and harmony, not just on the global level, but on the inner level of all of us giving back to Hashem. We're not Neviim, but we're B'nai Neviim, and that's all going to come back to us. And I'm really looking forward to dancing in the streets with everyone on that day to greet the face of Mashiach. Yeah.